Very excited to have everyone here. We are recording this session for members who are not able to join because we have members across different time zones, as you all know. We will get started. I know people are still joining in. If my colleagues could keep admitting people as they come in, but in the interest of time, we will join in because we have two very interesting items on the agenda today. We are going to talk about the transformation of MCLD, which has happened over the last 2 years, that many of you have been a part of. And then we are going to hear from our really newly formed youth task force, which again, I know many people here are a part of, your organizations are a part of. They have been doing some great work. They've put together a whole charter, a code of conduct. They're putting together a charter. They have a code of conduct and lots of opportunities to actually ensure that the voice of the youth is represented in the movement, and youth all over the world actually understand and forward the practice of community-led development. So it is an exciting call. Very great to meet all of you and to have you here with us in 2024. It's not been an easy year. 2023 was not easy. 2024 is not looking that it will become any easier. We all know that the world around us is currently embroiled in conflict and strife. There are genocides and war which are happening. Women, children, people from marginalized groups all over the world are being denied human rights and facing atrocities. We know climate disasters are happening. There have been warnings issued on acute starvation and food shortages in many parts of the world. In the midst of all of this solidarity, the collaboration, the collective action that the movement represents, and that all of you represent and bring together here becomes even more important. Because it is only together that all of us can transform the system and can fight and protest against the atrocities which are taking place. It is only together and in solidarity that we can stand up for the rights of every woman, child, man, community around the world. And so thank you so much for taking time to be a part of the movement, for everything that each one of you does in your countries, in your communities, in your everyday life. I would love to begin 2024 really with an acknowledgement and celebration of all of us and all the phenomenal work that our communities, the community leaders, and all the 2,000 plus movement members who may not be here, but who do this phenomenal work, this very difficult work, tirelessly, endlessly in their communities every day. I'm Gunjan Veda. I just realized I did not introduce myself, and we do have a lot of new participants here. So I am Gunjan Veda. I am the Global Secretary for MCLD Global, for MCLD, and the Executive Director for MCLD US. It is really my privilege and honor to welcome all of you to our first monthly call. And Sarah, if we can go to the next slide. And for those of you who are used to seeing John conducting these calls and are wondering what's happened.
Alors, donc, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oh, I think we heard Paul in the English channel.
Yes, Paul fell off and he's reconnected. So, Sarah, you may need to stick him back in the interpreter slot.
Okay. 1 second, everyone, while we wait for interpretation to be set up. Apologies. What hasn't changed between 2023 and 2024 are our connectivity challenges globally. And I think that's one of the things we should aim at changing in 2025 to make sure that we actually can ensure access to connectivity to our members everywhere. Sarah, is Paul set up?
Yes, we're good to go.
Thank you so much. So for those of you who are used to seeing John on these calls and are wondering what's happening, why am I opening them and not John? It's not just because it's his birthday today. It is his birthday today. Happy birthday, John. But the reason we will talk about the transformation and transition that MCLD is going through, and I hope that will answer a lot of questions that people do have. So on today's agenda, really, the two main items are updates on MCLD's transition and really the new youth task force, which has been set up to see how is it. We've talked a lot about inclusion in the movement. We've talked a lot about making sure that voices, perspectives are a part of the movement and the work that we do. How do we actually operationalize this inclusion? The Youth Task Force is a very important step in that direction. So we're going to hear from members of our Youth Task Force today on what is it that they're planning. How can other youth in different national associations become a part of this task force? And how can we together ensure that youth voices and perspectives shape the movement, just as the movement shapes youth perspectives as they go out and try to transform the world that we are all in. So those are our two agenda items for today. Towards the end, of course, we will talk about some upcoming events. We'll hear some association updates. And as always, because we see a lot of new members, we're going to start with a very quick introduction to MCLD. So if we go to the next slide, please. So MCLD, as many of you may know, was launched at the 2015 SDG Summit at the UN General Assembly in New York. It was a group of INGOs at that time who came together and said, well, remember the MDGs and what happened? If we are serious about the SDGs, we really have to transform the way we think, work, and do development, right? And so we have to put communities front and center in everything that we do. It was this belief in the power, potential, and promise of communities that led to the birth of MCLD. And what started as an INGO-led movement quickly transformed itself to become a majority world-led network of networks. Today, we have over 2,000 local and community-based organizations from around the world who are part of MCLD, and over 35 INGO and INGO networks in the movement. When we started out, we were incubated by the Hunger Project. Until the last monthly call, our secretariat used to be inside the Hunger Project. But this is a transition that I will be talking about soon. As of 31st December, we completely moved out of the Hunger Project, and we are our own independent, majority world-led networks of networks. We have currently 17 national associations, which are either registered, registering, already existing, or in the process of emerging. And again, we'll talk about them soon. Sarah, if we go to the next slide. So the objectives with which MCLD was formed continue to remain the same, right? So much has changed in the world around us in the last 9 years since MCLD was formed, but our objectives remain as relevant today as they were when we first started out. Ensuring voice and agency for women, youth, people with disabilities, and historically marginalized communities, adequate community finance, good local governments, quality public services, which are the rights of all citizens, right? And resilience, which we know will only happen when the other four take place. So those goals remain the same for the movement. If we go to the next slide. This shows us the MCLD national associations in different parts of the world, but a clearer picture will emerge if we actually look at the table, which is in the next slide. So these are the MCLD national associations that we currently have. The national associations are the heart and soul of the movement because even though we recognize the need for global solidarity, for sharing, for peer learning, for global advocacy to change the system, we also know that eventually the real work happens in countries. It is in countries that we work with national governments to support devolution and to ensure that our communities have the voice, visibility, finance that they require to be able to really be resilient in the face of disasters, both natural and human-made, that we are facing currently, right? So these are our national associations currently. A lot of them you'll see are registered or in the process of registering. There are others which are picking up steam again. And there are new national associations that are emerging. If you are in any of these countries, please get in touch with our national associations. Let us know if you would like to connect with our national associations so that you can continue to shape and transform the way things work in your countries. Next slide, please. So we talked about transformation of MCLD. I'm going to go back a little bit and take you through I'll give you a little slice of MCLD history to really put the transformation and transition in context. As I said, when MCLD started out, it was a group of 18 INGOs led by the Hunger Project, John really, who co-founded the movement and who truly believed in in ensuring that communities are front and center. But very quickly, the members realized that really, if we need to change the system, transform the system, and move power to communities, we have to address the unequal power dynamics that exist in the current development, humanitarian, and peace systems, right? And so when the Shift the Power slogan was coined by the Global Fund for Community Foundations, that became our rallying cry for the movement. And we had hundreds of local community-based organizations joining the movement. So our character changed. We became from a group of 18 INGOs who wanted to transform the system. We became a majority world group of over 2,000 local and community-based organizations and 35 INGO allies who are very committed to this, because we realized to transform the system, we need every stakeholder in it, right? And as we were doing so, the world suddenly realized that what we were saying had been right all along. COVID happened and people saw that communities are the first responders in any crisis, right? And suddenly we have this whole push towards locally led development, and everybody wanted to know how to do it. And so people started coming to the movement to ask, well, how do we do this? We realize now locally led development is the way to go. Community led development is the way to go. That power needs to shift to communities. How do we actually operationalize this, right? And because we in the movement, with all of you here, had been doing this work for so many years, we did have tools and trainings and ways of bringing this transformation about. But we realized in 2022 that we could no longer do it sitting inside the Hunger Project, which had all of these years incubated us and provided us with all the support that we needed. So we began a process of consultation with all of you, with our members, listening cafes, design workshops, monthly calls to understand what should our new structure look like. And what we came up with all of you was this structure, right, that we see here on the screen. The heart and soul would continue to be our national associations. These national associations would have a democratic process of running themselves. They could choose to be elected, to be registered or not registered in their countries. And as we saw in the previous slides, many are registering and many are not registering right now. But they would have a democratic process to reflect the values of MCLD. And they would have their own boards or steering committees, which would decide their strategies, which would decide the way, the collective action plans, and how they would work in their countries, right? We would have a global secretariat. This global secretariat, where I sit, where Sarah, where my other colleagues are, would be formed not just with members from one national association, but from different national associations. So we have Joanna and Steve and Pascal, who are sitting in different parts of Africa, who are also part of our secretariat. It's not located in any one physical location or country. The secretariat exists to serve the national associations, to ensure learning, peer learning between them, to ensure global advocacy, and to fulfill the mandate of the Global Assembly. The Global Assembly is our key decision-making body. It will comprise of representatives from every national association. Gender-balanced group from every national association will be part of the Global Assembly. It is this Global Assembly that will decide the direction, the policies, the strategy, and will hold the brand MCLD. This is not an incorporated body, because then it would mean it would have to be in some country around the world, and we don't want to do that. So it's not an incorporated body, but it is our universal body. It is our global body where all of us will come together to decide on our direction and strategy. And we hope to have this global assembly happening sometime between around June to August, I want to say, this year. We are in the process of working with different national associations to come up with a timeline and a way forward to get to the global assembly. In the meantime, we've been executing slowly and surely the changes that this structure required from all of us. So one of the first things that we heard in the design workshops and the listening cafes is, why are US members global? So we started with the formation of MCLD US. Last year in April, MCLD US was registered as a 501c3, which is essentially a nonprofit organization in the US. And we actually have our first annual general meeting of MCLD US later today, where I think some of you will be joining us as MCLD US members. Many of our associations began the process of registering themselves. John, who founded the movement and who has led the movement from all of these years, and who will continue to be an active advocate, volunteer, and part of the movement, has become the chair of MCLD US, but has also moved on from his role as the coordinator, global coordinator of the movement. I have stepped in as the global secretary of the movement now, as I mentioned earlier. And we have a new team of people who would be supporting us in this work, in the transformation. So if we can go to the next slide, Sarah, and introduce the team. This is our current team that we have. Many faces I know are familiar to you. You have seen them, Pascal, Joanna, Steve, Sarah. You have seen them across calls. The two new faces that we have is Marielle Kanene, who is joining us, who actually joined us on the 1st of this month as the manager for resource mobilization and partnerships, and Nelly Mecklenburg, who many of you may actually know because she was a very active part of our collaborative research team and actually the co-host and co-facilitator of the Unlearning Labs. Nelly will be joining us full-time beginning tomorrow. So tomorrow is her first day, but she will be joining a movement. So this is the team at the Secretariat. We are currently looking for 2 more people to join our Secretariat. If you have recommendations, if you know people, send them our way. We are looking for a Latin America coordinator so that the movement can once again become vibrant and re-energized in Latin America. And we are looking for another position out of Nairobi to support this global expanding work that we have as a movement. And that person would come in as a program manager. So probably somebody can help me put the links in the chat box. The positions are on our website. They are open. Please, if you know people who would be fantastic and who would add to the MCLD, who understand the MCLD values, send them our way. So that's really been the transformation and the transition that's been taking place at MCLD. Our global calls will continue the way they have been they have been carrying on. The Unlearning Labs, the different platforms that we have, we will continue to have them. We are in the process of, coming together and finding out how do we actually re-energize and again, continue with the leadership calls, which I know many of you were a part of. We have this new youth task force coming up, and we are going to have a few more working groups, which are very specific. Just like we had the research working groups that many of you were a part of, that led to the development of the CLD assessment tool that I know many of you are champions of and use. And the trainings that we have all emerge from those working groups. So we are going to have a new set of working groups that we will also announce shortly. So I know that was a lot, but I hope that gives you a sense of the transition we have undergone as MCLD and we are in the process of going through. What we really want to ensure, what all of us told, all of you told us in the listening cafes, was to ensure that even as we become an organizational structure, we retain the characteristics of the movement, because that is really what makes us who we are. That is what gives us strength. That is what really energizes us. And that is what has led to MCLD bringing about the transformation that we have seen over the last few years. So once again, a big thank you to everyone. And now, without further ado, we will actually move to the youth task force. But I'm actually going to stop myself here before I hand over to Malin to give everybody a few minutes if they have any questions on the new structure, on the transition. If you do, please unmute and speak. Just let us know. I see one question in the chat box from in DRC, we need to also have our team. How can we process to have this team? So what we are doing now is that because MCLD is now its own movement organization, we actually have a full formal process of becoming a national association that we will be sharing out with everybody. It is currently with the existing national associations. We are going to take it to the coordinators, and once we agree on it, we will be sharing that with everybody. And this way, we know in many countries, groups are coming up, multiple groups are coming up who really want to start and initiate MCLD national associations. And so that would be on our website, it would be sent to all members, and that way everybody gets to know what are the, how do you create and form and become a member of MCLD? What does being an MCLD National Association entail? So give us a couple of weeks, we will be sharing it out. We are in the process of doing this. Are there any other questions? Comments?
Yes, I have a question. Yes.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's Dunia, Colomba Dunia from DRC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, I've asked my question about how we can have our own group here in DRC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if another question is about how many organizations from DRC are just registered in this corporation.
Right.
Because,
Thank you. Yeah.
oh yeah.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, because while we meet online, I've difficult to hear about other organizations from DRC. I see like myself here, and I would like to know if there are other organizations which are a member of MCLD,
Right.
and if they are following me now, maybe we could organize ourselves to have our meeting at our side as DRC organizations member of the MCLD.
Right.
If you can have an idea about
Right.
you can have an idea about organizations from DRC, you can help us to bring us together so we can organize each at our level and see how we can usually meet for discussing something which concern this corporation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Colombo. So we do have from DRC, we had a very active group called FOPAC, which has been part of the movement for a very long time. And it here has been supporting, FOPAC and trying to bring together different organizations here who are from DRC in the movement to come together as a DRC National Association. So happy to connect you with Annette, but also there are emerging groups in DRC, and we will, like with any other national association, we will go through a process of bringing everybody together to have a discussion on the national association formation strategy in the coming weeks. Right now, like I said, it is with the existing association coordinators. We'll be sending it out to make sure that it aligns with MCLD values and principles. Once we have that, we will share it. But Annette is the person on this call who's really been working with groups in DRC and supporting them to come together. So, and I think she's already shared her email ID with you. But happy to. And just like with DRC, if there are other countries, if you want to know how to connect with MCLD in your country or create a national association in your country, for now, you know, we can put our email ID, Sarah, in the chat. Get in touch with us. We will connect you. If there is already an existing group that is trying to create a national association, we will connect you with them. If there isn't, we will let you know what the process is and work with you to, you know, to create that. And if there is an existing national association, we will connect you to them.
Yeah. Next week, last week, I've seen somewhere in the group in the MCLD website. I've seen a mail. The MCLD from Uganda will have a meeting. Maybe they will organize a meeting. They will host a meeting in the next month. And I've sent you a mail to let you know that I would like to assist that meeting, so I can have an idea on how they organize themselves in Uganda, and we can be inspired by what they are doing in Uganda for organize our yeah.
Thank you, Columba.
If yeah.
No, I will just say this because I do want to, you know, move to the youth task force also. But I will say this, that yes, we actually have a lot of MCLD national associations which are already information, you know, which have been formed, which have been there for a long time. Uganda is an excellent example. They have co-created all their policies and everything. And it's a wonderful idea to connect and learn from different national associations. Again, you know, we can assist you in connecting you to different associations, which are there. The Uganda meeting you're talking to about is specifically the annual general meeting, so it may only be open to members. I don't know what Uganda's policy is, so they will get back to you about that specifically. But just for anybody else, if there are very specific national associations you're looking to join, connect with, or learn from, or want to start, you know, please do reach out to us. We can, if needed, later in the year, have a specific call around creating MCLD National Association, what it entails, and, you know, how can we support. So we can absolutely do that if people feel that is a need. With that,
Okay.
thank you so much again. Appreciate the questions, Columba,
Thank
and
you.
enthusiasm.
Thank you, Gunjan. Thank you, Gunjan, for that.
With that, if there are no other questions specifically on the transition of MCLD, then I will hand it to our excellent, you know, Millen started out as an intern with MCLD. She has just finished. In fact, today is the final day of her internship, but she is going to continue as a coordinator of the Youth Task Force. This was really something that she brought up, her idea, and she has worked consistently with the youth members of MCLD and different association coordinators to make it happen. So again, thank you, Mullen, for your enthusiasm, for everything that you have done. And we would love if you could share with us the vision of the Youth Task Force, what they're doing, and how youth members from different organizations who are on this call, who are in the national associations, can be a part of it. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. So as said, my name is Millen, and I'm currently the Global Coordinator for the MCLD Youth Task Force. We can go to the next slide. And I'm so happy to be here with you guys. So good morning to those in morning hours and good afternoon to those in the afternoon and everything in between. So the plan for this part of our meeting would just be to have a quick introduction, then go over the purpose and objectives of the Youth Task Force, our structure, our current team members, and of course, how you guys can reach out to join if you would like to or get more information, what we have already done in our first 2 meetings, what is next, and then we will end on a discussion. So we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to begin by just quickly talking about how we came to be. So during my internship, Gunjan asked me a question about what I was interested in. And when I wholeheartedly said, I'm very interested in youth, she was like, great, we have a big question to ask then. How can we bring youth into the movement, as well as bring community-led development to youth and youth networks? And after a lot of larger proposal writing and thinking, we came to the idea of a youth task force. And I just want to quickly shout out as well that I couldn't have done this without the help of Steve, Joanna, Pascal, Jacob, John, Sarah, Gunjan, and of course my team. So just a big thank you to you guys for all of the advice and everything. But we can go to the next slide. So we began as an idea and have now had our first 2 meetings. And the purpose within our idea has been to integrate youth perspectives into the movements, to ensure that youth voices from various national associations are represented within these voices, to create a comprehensive MCLD youth charter, which we are going to begin in the next coming weeks, to make sure that we're bridging the gap between MCLD and existing youth networks and not just creating repetitive networks that already exist, and making sure also that youth can really be those in the youth networks and bridging these gaps. And lastly, ensuring that youth develop an appreciation for community-led development and understand what we are doing and that we can spread this out to the future generations. Next slide. We also have several objectives that we have in order to reach our purpose, like identifying the key issues facing youth in their home countries, as well as the potential advocacy points for local communities, formulating, as said previously, the MCLD Youth Charter, developing a platform for youth within MCLD where we can exchange advice, have a sense of community and partnership, and just make sure that we're really working together as the next generation to learn from each other and just a space to share. And of course, foster a community-led development perspective among youth. And this is particularly important for those planning to work in global development and humanitarian sectors. Next slide. And I will also now give it over to our amazing member Prayer to bring up the structure of our meeting.
Hi everyone, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm going to send on all existing protocol. I'm so excited. So for the structure for the youth task force, we have the general members. And we have like criteria. First of all, nominated by the National Association, and it falls between the age category of age 15 to 35 years old. The next category is emphasis on diversity and inclusion. So we are including everyone, no matter your sex or orientation. There's not going to be any form of discrimination. And the third point is one third of our membership association, and the maximum number of members is 20 at a time. And that's because we want to ensure that, we're giving our best to the work and we are delivering effectively. The next point is open position for youth from countries with our national association. So you agree with me, as our first speaker was presenting, we have some associations that are not yet fully registered, but they may have youths that are very inspiring and are passionate about making change in their communities and would like to be part of us. So we are going to open it up to them to join us. Then for the global coordinator, structure, is going to be held for 6 months and going to be rotating voluntary position held by a association's general member. Yeah, and then the next point is this is going to be decided through the youth task force, and then we're going to do a voting system if we have like a lot of members showing interest in occupying the global coordinator position. Okay, so vote, and whoever has the highest vote will be the one that will take over. Then the third point is monthly check-ins with MCLD Global Secretariat. And that is very important because we have to give consistent updates about our activities and the impact we're making in our communities. Yes, and then the fourth point is the first global coordinator. Give it out to Milan. She's amazing. She's our first global coordinator, and she has been doing an incredible job with all the youths. You can hear my voice. I'm very, very enthusiastic because Milan has been doing a great job. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah. So our terms, the terms are very important. Okay, so for the general membership, it's going to be held for 2 years. Okay, and 50% change annually. So the reason why we want it to be 2 years is because we want the youth to have enough time to implement our ideas, to make impact. You know, we don't just want it to be something too rushed out. So 2 years is going to be for the membership. Then this is going to be renewed based on performance and desire. So if a youth has been performing very well, making impact, I mean, just open there's going to be an openness for them to renew, and then a desire to be part of the youth task force. Then also it's very important that we note that there's going to be a certificate of completion that is going to be given to the youth task force member, which is going to be given from the MCLD, which is very, very important. This will encourage them and also add to their CV and criteria of things that they have done to impact in the society. Then for the global coordinator, the terms of reference is 6 months term. Person is going to be serving for 6 months, and it's going to be followed by a member of a new association. So for example, if now Mila heading it, the next person that's going to be taking over will be from a different association. If the person being nominated maybe is from Sierra Leone, another different country will take over, not the same Sierra Leone, so that it can all go around. Okay, and then it's going to be a voluntary position. And if we have many members that are showing interest in occupying that position, we're going to take a voting system to pick out the one that has the highest points. And then at the end of the day, there's going to be a certificate of completion being given to from the MCLD after a successful tenure. Thank you so much for hearing us. I'm going to hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
I think if we change slides, we'll be now introducing our current members. Mambu, are you there?
I do see Mambu here, but I think it is muted. Mambu is muted. Mambu, can you unmute, please?
Hello?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Miriam and Priya, for the wonderful job you have done. Currently, our current membership on MCLD Task Force are 4 countries, which they are Miriam from USA, Rose from Kenya, Priya from Nigeria, Lucinda from Sierra Leone, Michaela from Sierra Leone, Matilda from Kenya, Samuel from Kenya, Sadiq from Nigeria, Mambu from Sierra Leone. But if you want to also to join or communicate with the MCLD Youth Task Force, you can also reach out to this information. If you want to learn more or join, please reach out to us by this email, million@mcld.org. Thank you very much. I will transfer the communication to other person for continuing.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Samuel Birech. I'm a member of the Youth Task Force representing our rural women Pistling which is a member of the MCLD that operates in Kenya. And so I'll be taking you through what we've already done as the Youth Task Force. And so what we've done, and this was in our first meeting, we created a code of conduct, and this basically outlined the Youth Task Force's principles and values, thus protecting the internal and external reputation of Youth Task Force and its members. What we also did was we created a personal care document, which was well, organized by Milan. And so this allowed us as members to get to know each other and gather more understanding on how to engage with each other. So this helps us as the Youth Task Force members to work as a team and understand how best we can be able to work as a team and understand how we can also integrate our strengths in order to achieve our short-term, medium, and long-term goals. Go move to the next slide. Yes. So we were also able to, engage and participate in the Youth Task Force giving and receivings, and this was able to allow us to understand our strength and our learning points. So through the giving and the receiving method, us as the members of the Youth Task Force were able to acknowledge each other's traits and delegate to be able to, delegate work accordingly that will fit with all of our learning needs, because we're able to, put in what we are good at, what we want to give to the Youth Task Force, what we want to also, receive in terms of experience from the Youth Task Force. And this was really key as a starter, because we can be able to, get to understand how we can best work together to achieve the Youth Task Force and the overall MCLD goal. And we were also able to go through the terms of reference. And this has allowed us as the Youth Task Force to define and refine the purpose and objectives. And also this has able to set scope and boundaries for the framework we are able to work within. And also it has been able to establish the guidelines through which us as the Youth Task Force will be able to just, work. It's like a railing through which we'll be able to move and ensure that, the plans of the MCLD and the Youth Task Force in particular, come to fruition and come to fulfillment. And so I will be handing it over to the next person. Thank you so much. Happy to be here and good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And allow me to stand on the already established protocol by my fellow presenters and the entire team. Gunjan, congratulations. John, happy birthday. Wish all of you well. So as a MCLD, some of the next steps that we anticipate is we welcome new members and finalize the team, as that now we are not complete, as Prayer has indicated that we look up to a maximum of 20. And we also look forward to begin brainstorming the youth charter. And this is just to make sure that we are kind of institutionalizing the youth task force within the MCLD space. And we look at it as a space that will outlive most of us, because after our 35 years, we don't want to hang in there, still reminding ourselves that we are youth at heart. We look forward to begin brainstorming some of the key issues facing youths in their home countries and potential advocacy points for local communities. As the Youth Task Force, we acknowledge that we are not a homogeneous group, and we appreciate some of the key actors, young people who will not have an opportunity to be in such a global platform. And as a team, we are taking it upon ourselves to make sure that we at least merge this gap or link them up with several networks. We are also looking forward to begin engaging with existing youth networks. As the Youth Task Force, we don't want to reinvent the wheel or start afresh. We are looking at working with already existing structures or networks, so that not every day a new opportunity comes up and they have to reinvent the wheel, they have to start from scratch, and they have to duplicate some of the works that have already existed. So we are coming in to support. We are not coming in to start from scratch. And we are also looking forward to begin arranging talks, seminars, insta chats, and other activities to promote community-led development among youth networks in colleges, etc. This is just to make sure that, in as much as the Youth Task Force can only accommodate 20 of us, we are aware that there are so many other young people out there. And we looked at this as one of the best ways to reach out to them. And another thing is that we are looking forward to cross-learn, not only from each other, but from some of the activities that we are going to undertake in this space for the next 2 years. And this is something that we all are so looking forward to, and we all are so happy to be part of. And one thing that really stands out for the Youth Task Force is that MCLD, we have the full support of MCLD Secretariat, and this is a way of giving us hope, because in most cases, some of the youth networks that has existed in history, they are only stand alone. There is no shoulder to lean on. We are proud and privileged to have MCLD Secretariat to offer a shoulder to lean on, and also to give the aspect of intergenerational learning and cross-learning. Thank you all. I wish you well, and we look forward to such an amazing engagement as the Youth Task Force. Our 2 years, we hope we are going to deliver. If we don't, we will hand over the mantle, and if we make it halfway, we will be proud and give a pat on our backs. Thank you all, and we look forward.
Thank you so much.
I think there's the discussion still.
Yeah, but before we get into the discussion, Milan, there are 2 questions in the chat which were there for the Youth Task Force. One was just on how to I think there are a few questions on how to join the Youth Task Force. So that's right on the screen, Milan's email ID. Get in touch with her. They have spaces on the Youth Task Force, and I'm sure if there are more than 20 members, they will find a way to engage everyone so that the youth voices shape this. So I'm sure the task force can find a way of engaging with different youth members, even if they're not official members of the task force. So, but there are positions. Please get in touch with Milan. Her email ID is right here. And I will put it in the chat as well. We will be sharing out the recording for this call. So all this information on the youth task force will be available. And to your question, Milan, there is a very specific question that if you want to try and answer on the youth task force, the age tranche is very wide. There is a big difference between a 15-year-old and a 35-year-old. How will you make sure younger people have a voice in such a range?
That's a very good question. I think there are many different steps that we're trying to take to make sure this works out. One being creating together a kind of code of conduct to ask how everyone feels one can best create a safe space for them. Some things that we included in there were making sure that everyone has time to speak and opening up different ways of communication if those are needed. So some people also might find it easier to type out answers or something, and then those are always welcome as well, instead of just based off of speaking. We also have created a lot of different spaces to look at what people might know as skills already, but what they also want to learn. And so based off of these learnings, which would be what they would be hopefully getting out of the task force, there's a lot of opportunity to give people different tasks where they can do that. And in the end, I think during meetings, it is mostly also the global coordinator's position as a facilitator to make sure that we're listening to everyone's perspective and that it's truly a democracy when it comes to decision making and things like that. But also as a community so far, at least within our current members, I'm very happy to say that we've been very open to listening to everyone, no matter age or experience, and that everyone is so welcoming and happy to just be a part of a team where we all have the same goals in the end, and that really leads to it. I hope that answers your question. But in the Padlets, which is sent out in the discussion, we also have room for more feedback. And so if you have tips for us on how we can even better do this, we're very open to hearing from you guys, because as I said at the start of my presentation, or of the youth task force presentation, the only way we got here is through lots of advice from people who have done this and done things already, and to continue doing that.
Thank you so much, Milan.
Go to the Padlet.
Yeah, do you want to explain to people what the Padlet is and what you want them to do? Because just like people had questions for you, I guess these are the questions or areas that the youth task force is looking for advice, feedback, suggestions from this great group here, right? Do you want to tell them?
Exactly. So for the Padlets, we have 3 questions so far. So one, how can we best integrate youth perspective into MCLD's work? So the general idea so far was to create a youth task force and to create a youth charter based off of the voices of the youth task force to make sure that it is written by youth. But beyond that, we're so open always to receiving feedback, and if a broader network of people have ideas on how we can really make sure that it's not something where we simply show, here are a couple youth faces, they're tokenized, and we're not actually involving youth within MCLD and the voices and perspectives. On the flip side, we really want to make sure that community-led development is being pushed out towards other youth networks and that more youth are learning about this. In some ways, we've thought of doing this is making sure that we're building bridges with existing youth networks, as well as having a CLD workshop for the youth leaders within the youth task force. But we would love to have more advice on ways that we can continue spreading this out. So that's where we're reaching out. And if you had other feedback, for example, the age range question, whether it's questions that we should ponder and make sure that we are considering, or feedback on how we can best do it, we would love to hear that as well. So if you just hit on the plus sign when you have logged on to the Padlet, you can then write in a response and share it, and it will be shared anonymously. And then we will all go over it together as a task force, hopefully with our new members, to kind of see where we're at, what feedback we got, and how we can tangibly use this advice. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mullen. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to really work and, put some ideas, suggestions, feedback for the youth task force onto the Padlet. If you have trouble writing onto the Padlet, put it in the chat and we will put it from there. And if there are people who would, if it's easier for you to speak, then put it in the Padlet, then also just raise your hands and we will ask you to unmute and come in. So different forms of getting feedback for the youth task force. Type on the Padlet, type in the chat, or just raise your hand and speak up. Arup, do you want to unmute? I think Arup Francis from Uganda. Sorry if I got your name wrong. Should have comment on leadership agenda. Okay, we're seeing some comments are coming up in the chat. So probably people are finding it a little more challenging to write onto Padlet, in which case we can do that for you. Okay, there is a question in the meantime as people are putting in and coming up with thoughts. There is a question around roles of MCLD's national member associations and youth working group. Is there a difference in the way they work? So the national associations are a broader umbrella group. They are not just youth associations or youth. National associations have members from, different civil society groups in that country. Every national association has its own system. Some allow INGO country offices, some only have, local and community-based organizations, right? So the national associations are the space overall to think about strategy, direction, agenda. The youth task force is specific. It's not limited to any national association or country. It is across the board. And it is a universal body that we hope will feed to and provide feedback to the Global Assembly, to the Global Secretariat across the board to make sure that youth voices are part of the work that we do in MCLD, because they bring important perspectives. I love this whole thing of the personal care statement that they have. I think we all need that, and we should think about doing that in the movement in general, not just, for the youth task force. So there are very important perspectives that the youth can bring in for us. And the Youth Task Force is across countries. It is not limited to any single country, but it is a way for us to integrate the youth perspectives. And as Rose talked about, this intergenerational exchange of knowledge can take place. I hope that answers. Does anyone have any questions, comments, feedback, ideas, suggestions for the Youth Task Force? I see a couple more questions coming up around general MCLD transition, and I'll come back to it, but let's give a few more minutes and focus on the Youth Task Force. I know they've worked very hard to come together to get everything together and to really seek the feedback of MCLD members to kind of, keep this intergenerational cycle of learning going. So. Thank you, Marian. You have some wonderful suggestions there for the Youth Task Force. Moses Augustine, please unmute. You had your hand up.
Thank you very much, Bujan, Milan, and the team for the wonderful presentation. It's really amazing. First of all, I want to applaud MCLD for thinking and going in the direction. I'm Moses Utima Augustine. I lead a network of young people in northern Uganda, sub-region, to be precise. And having young people at the helm of affairs, I am so excited about the initiatives on transformation of MCLD that young people have. Yes, I understand the move that has been created with the voice across the globe comes strongly to also towards the global agenda, which is also paramount. For now, I will just have them and
Well, thank you, Moses. I know there was a slight issue with the connectivity, so we may have missed some of it. If you can also type some of what you said, it would be fantastic.
To attend the meeting at first, I have National Democratic Institute. I know what you have seen them, they've been supporting for the meeting. So they are talking about disability, national in 2024 national budget, stability inclusion. So I thought of what around the best to do that.
I think there may be an additional conversation going on that probably
they've invited me, but I'll be.
Yeah, I muted. It was on Samuel's line.
Okay, great. Arup says, I would like to say that MCLD Task Force should include human rights agenda into their programming. Okay. Should develop a community development patrol, movement monitoring government programs, ensuring leaders account and deliver. Fantastic ideas. Marian, I don't know if you're able to, and if you would like to unmute and speak, you have some great ideas coming out. If you want to unmute and speak, if you're able to, great. If you're happy with just typing, that's great too.
Thank you very much, Gunjan. I'm very excited about the initiative of the Youth Task Force. I think it's the lifeline and it's a lifeline for our country level movements in terms of ensuring that they survive. And if we don't have the youth on board, then we're talking to ourselves. I think, like for us in Africa, our biggest population now is the youth. And I think you're right on point to ensure that we have this generation of people, persons targeted to ensure that they have a voice and they are part of the movements that matter, especially the movement for community development, to ensure that the youth are the ones leading in terms of the development agenda, in monitoring local resources and ensuring that the resources reach those that need them most. So I think it's a great initiative. That's why all these ideas are bubbling in my mind and I'm sharing them. I'm sharing the ideas in the chat. Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Appreciate it. And again, appreciate the great ideas that are coming in. Please continue to share your ideas. The Padlet will be open. If for whatever reason you're not able to put things into the Padlet, because I know every new technology platform comes with its own set of challenges. I struggle with technology all the time, so I should know this. But if there is a challenge putting things into the Padlet, you have Milan's email ID. Please send her an email with it. If you are a youth on this call, if you're part of a national association and you're wondering how to get members, youth members from your association onto the task force, again, please write to Milan. Her email ID has been shared. We will put it out again. We really are looking for ideas because I mean, the foundation of MCLD is inclusion. You cannot have, we all know this. We cannot have community-led development. We cannot shift power if we do not have inclusion. So we really would appreciate all your support in trying to ensure that we can make MCLD into as inclusive a space as possible. I see a couple of comments from Francophone colleagues. I know some of them are specifically around transition and MCLD, which we will take up separately. But Sarah, is there anything from the Francophone colleagues around the youth task force in the questions?
The questions are mainly about building connections within their country. So I'm responding privately or in the chat on who to email for the best information.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Mullen, if there is anything else you would like to say before we move on, then we will leave the Padlet open, and I have offered people your email ID in case they are not able to get to Padlet to send suggestions. But
of course. I would say one thing that I realized I did not mention. As of now, we did not have in our meeting someone who felt comfortable enough speaking both English and French to make sure that we can make this as inclusive as possible and have members who also might not feel comfortable in English. But if any new members come in and feel that they are able to do that, or while we look for alternative solutions, we are still looking to make this as inclusive as possible for also people where English is, of course, not their first or preferred language, because that shouldn't be something that holds people back. It might just take a moment until we get there, but it is something we're looking into. And I wanted to thank everyone also for their feedback. And it's been really great to kind of see what you guys have to say. We're learning a lot. Thank you.
well, thank you so much, Mullen. Thank you to all the Youth Task Force members for the amazing work that you have done. I was amazed at how quickly they came together and how quickly they created these documents and charter and everything. But I guess that's the energy and enthusiasm of youth, right? And as Marianne was saying, we know that they are going to be a major part of Africa's population. So I'm so happy that we are finding a way to integrate youth perspectives within the movement. So yes, please reach out to Mullen, if there is anything on the youth task force. I know there have been a lot of questions coming in about individual national associations. And how to connect, how to create, what can be done. I want to suggest two things. One, for your individual, Sarah is individually responding to a lot of the comments, especially the Francophone ones on the national associations. but please reach out to us separately. I will put my email ID in chat. On specific national associations, we have existing associations. Kelvin, you asked about Liberia. We already have a vibrant registered national association in Liberia. So we have existing associations. Where they exist, we will connect you to their coordinators. Where there are information, we will connect you to the groups that are, trying to bring these together to create the national associations. And where they do not exist, we are very happy to work with you to see how we can strengthen national associations or have an MCLD national association coming up. I think a little later in the year, a couple of months down the line, maybe what we will do is we will organize a specific call for on the issue of national associations, going over what the associations are, what it means to create one, what it takes, the list, introducing all the coordinators. Not only do we have national association coordinators, we have two fantastic regional coordinators, Pascal and Steve, who are both on this call for East Africa and West Africa. So if you are in that region and wanting to create a national association, they really are your go-to people for that. So we will have a call where we will go over specifically on MCLD national associations, I think, based on just what people have been asking around it. But in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to us about it. I do know we have members from many national associations here, and generally what we do like to do is to share quickly if any of the associations have something that they would like to share, because we may not hear about it. I know we are all steeped in our own work and we come together on these global calls with a thematic, but our national associations have been doing phenomenal work in their countries. They really are the movers and shakers in their countries. From Nigeria, which launched this fabulous election prevention of election violence campaign, Sierra Leone, which did a similar thing, Liberia, which had this campaign on food security and mobilized land from so many communities to carry out, training on effective agriculture measures and for climate change risk mitigation. Benin, Kenya with the School for CLD, each of the national associations at any given time is doing phenomenal work, which you would have seen some of it on the newsletter. A lot of it is on our website. If you haven't, I encourage you to actually go and see what the associations are doing that. We are not as up to date as we would like to be, but we are trying to be there. But right now, I would like to invite, if any of the existing national associations coordinators or members are here and would like to share what the national associations are doing. And if you have any other questions on MCLD transition, which are not very national association specific in terms of connections, please again put them in the chat and we can take them up here. Any of the association coordinators would like to share updates? No? Okay, then, sorry, Taiki, did you unmute? Or Michelle? Michelle? Okay. Great. So I will make a few updates in that case. I'm sorry, you're hearing a lot of me today, but hopefully this will go down as the monthly calls progress. So we have, in December 2023, MCLD Benin became the newest national association to register. So MCLD Benin is now a registered national association. A big congratulations to the MCLD Benin team on that. Pascal Baranje, I see other MCLD National Association members there. I know MCLD Zambia is revitalizing, and we have a lot of members from MCLD Zambia on the call today, and they had their meeting this week. I don't know, Samuel, you or anybody from MCLD Zambia wants to share what happened at your National Association meeting? MCLD Uganda is going to be having its first annual general body meeting, and not first, it's going to have its next annual general meeting, sorry, in February. You saw it in the newsletter. MCLD US is going to have its first annual general meeting today at noon. So ours is a first, Uganda is not a first. I know, and I hope to see many of you there later today. In terms of events and activities going forward, we will have our monthly call on the 28th of February. The unlearning labs that many of you were a part of that we started last year as a way to really rethink our ways of thinking, being, and doing, unlearn a lot of the colonial paradigms that we have been steeped in to be able to co-create new ways of thinking, being, and doing. Last year, we started a series on community-led monitoring, evaluation, and learning. We've already had 3 sessions. Those are going to restart in March. So we will continue the Unlearning Labs series in March. We have a special thing coming up in March, which actually, thanks, Sarah, for putting this up. I had completely forgotten. A huge initiative that MCLD took last year was a commitment letter from the majority world. Over 1,600 majority world organizations and individuals came together and signed on to a letter on how to organize events on locally led development. This letter was born out of the frustration that many of our members had experienced on how conversations on locally led development were being carried out. They were often in countries and places that we could not get a visa to. Our National Association members have had a lot of trauma, really, in trying to just get visas and last minute trying to be in these spaces very unsuccessfully. So that all triggered this letter, which we joined hand with Peace Direct and Civicus to do this. The letter was sent out on the 29th of November to all the bilateral agencies, foundations, funders that we could reach out to. And foundations and funders are actually signing on to that letter to express their commitment, to say that we will listen to the 5 things that the majority world organizations have asked of us. If you are a majority world organization, and when I say majority world, we are talking to what people generally call the global south, but refuse to recognize that a majority of the world's population is actually in those countries that we talk about in the global south. So if you are in the majority world, the commitment letter is, the sign-on letter is still open and you can sign on to it. If you are an INGO, the letter is open for INGO commitments. We've had over 100 INGOs from different parts of the world who have already signed on to it, saying we hear what the majority world organizations and actors are saying, and we are going to stand by and stand with them. And we agree to these principles. So that commitment letter form for INGOs is open. If you are an INGO, we encourage you to take it up with your organizations and sign it. Sarah, is it at all possible to put the links to the forms here? So Sarah is putting there the form. If you are a majority world organization, you can sign on to the letter in English, French, Swahili, Arabic, Spanish. It's in 5 different languages. If you are an INGO, there is an English sign-on thing which is there for you. If you have questions, we are welcome to answer them. This is a major initiative that MCLD facilitated last year. And as a follow-up to that, this year, over the next few months, we are organizing listening sessions. And these listening sessions are with majority world actors to understand, well, then how should events on locally led development be organized? It's a completely majority world initiatives, and we will be having these listening sessions throughout the next 3 months. We'll share a schedule soon with all of you. Again, this is part of our initiative to transform the system. Now, if you are an INGO or a minority world actor who has been part of these things, there is a survey that will be sent out to them. If you want to be a part of it, reach out to us and we will share it with you. And this survey would be trying to understand what are the challenges that INGOs and minority world organized actors face in trying to make LLD events more inclusive. These are restrictions from one. How do we find countries where most of our CBO members can attend events, right? So that's there. That's a huge initiative that MCLD is embarking on with Civicus and Peace Direct, and we will be sharing out more details. So those are the 3 big things which are happening over the next few months from MCLD. All right. Is there anything, are there any other questions, Sarah, that are in chat that I'm missing? Oh, I see a question from Jacob. Is there a plan to hold the MCLD summit or conference? It's an excellent idea, Jacob. Our challenge is just going to be in terms of funding and resources. So if we are able to, we have for 2 years been wanting to come up with a space, a CLD summit. Not just for MCLD, but actually connecting with different networks that are working towards this agenda from around the world. But funding is a challenge. So if we are able to, then yes, absolutely. We would love to have a CLD summit this year or next year. If anyone has any ideas or resources, share them. There is a question around registering for the next event. We will please make sure that you subscribe to the MCLD list. All event invitations go out to the list. I will say this, that we underwent, as part of our transition, we underwent a major technological challenge as well, and a technological transition, as we had to move email IDs, information, and domain out of the Hunger Project into MCLD. There may have been some challenges. If for any reason you find you're not getting MCLD emails or something, if for whatever reason you dropped out of the system in the transition, reach out to us and we will make sure that you are on the mailing list. With that, if there is nothing else, if anyone wants to say anything, please unmute, share, speak. Otherwise, we'll give ourselves 10 minutes back from our day. No? No questions, no comments, no feedback. Great, then. Thank you, everyone. I propose we all unmute, and before we say bye, we all say happy birthday to John. Say bye.
Happy birthday, John. Long live.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, John.
Birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John.
Sarah, can you drop the slides?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, John.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
And a
Thank
big
you. I
thank
can't
you to
imagine
Paul,
a
our
happier way to
interpreter.
spend this with you.
Happy birthday, John.
Congratulations.
John. Happy birthday, John.
Thank you, Francis.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy
Thank you,
birthday,
Paul,
John.
for your
This
invitation.
has been my biggest birthday party ever.
Brother John, happy birthday. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Happy birthday.
Bye. Sorry, Justin, I
Bonjour,
just
Monsieur
saw your
Papa.
hand. If you had something
Bonjour,
pinky,
Sarah.
right? I'm so sorry. I just saw your hand, Justin. So please feel free to reach out and write to me. I'll put my email ID in chat. Thank you,
everyone.
We'll close
Bye.
the call now. Bye-bye.